Mrs. Feng.
Good morning, boys.
Mrs. Feng, what story are we reading today?
It's about a slug named Norman who is looking for a shell so he can play with a group of snails.
Aren't slugs and snails the same? They belong to the same group of animals, right?
Yes, they are. The main difference between them is that a snail has a shell and a slug doesn't. Are you ready to read a story?
Yes, we are.
The title of our story is Norman the Slug with a Silly Shell by Sue Hendra. Norman the Slug thought snails were great. Wow, said Norman. Look at them. They're amazing. But unfortunately, the snails didn't think Norman was great.
Norman, you silly slug, they cried. You've spoiled our fun. This only works if you've got a shell. Norman felt left out. Sadly, he sulked off into the moonlight. If only I had a shell of my own, he sighed, looking at his own reflection. And that's when he had an idea. Maybe I could have a shell after all, he thought. But finding a shell was not easy as it seemed. One was too bouncy, and one was too noisy, and one was already taken. Norman needed time to think. Ta-da! A shell! It was perfect! Norman had never been happier. He could join the snails at last. Norman loved being a snail, and the snails loved Norman's silly shell.
But the fun didn't last for long. Suddenly, there was a loud flapping of wings. "Look out! Bird!" cried the snails in panic. "Quick, slither for your lives or we'll end up as supper." But the bird was more interested in Norman's silly shell. It looked delicious. Norman was being carried up and away, higher and higher into the sky. What could he do? Norman did the only thing a slug could do. He made a slide, lots and lots of it. With a slither and a slaughter, a slip and a slide, Norman was free. But he was falling faster and faster and faster until... Plonk! Norman! Norman, are you okay? Asked the snails. Well, said Norman, that was great. I love flying. If only I had wings. Ta-da!
Oh, how funny and silly Norman was.
Mrs. Feng, what is the moral lesson of this story?
This story teaches us the importance of accepting who we are. Boys, you should learn how to accept yourselves the way you look and be happy in life. We don't have to try to look like anyone else.
We'll always remember that, Mrs. Feng. Thank you.
It's time for us to say goodbye.
Goodbye.